What? What? Oh shit. Must have fallen asleep from my synth closet again. Oh crap. Oh, Jesus, fuck. Oh well, that looks like a mess. Yeah, fuck, I'm coming. Oh, fuck. Oh shit. Not again, those fucking patch cables. I wish somebody would make a modular synth without patch cables. Oh wait. Well, then again, patching is fun, right? Yeah, fuck, I'm coming. Jesus. Yeah, I know. Fuck, Jesus Christ. Huh? What? Jeez. Oh. What is that? Huh. Oh, let's see what that's all about. First, let's get these beautiful things out of the way. Tube monster thing. Eurorack, whatever that is. Turn off this stupid disco light. That's pathetic. That weird beer coaster thing. I mean, as if I'd be drinking alcohol while I play. Well, actually, no, you can stay. Okay, so hang on. Has this been opened? Ah, it has. Wait. Behind me? There's like nothing, literally. What the heck? Whoa. Okay, well, that was weird, I suppose. But hey, there's even a printed manual. Let's look inside of that. Infernal Noise Machine. This is a noise device. Please mentally append "ish" to all descriptions. Well, that starts great. Frequency and range joystick, we've seen those. Dual voltage controlled amplifier, voltage controlled oscillator. Yep, that's all standard stuff, right? Functional features, design, lifetime warranty. Well, that's great. I mean, I'm not gonna live that long with that thing, I suppose. Well, what is it? Yeah, good question. This thing will piss you off, of course. Wait. This thing will piss you off? Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm already at that point, right? Graphs, text, VCO, filter. Another module because apparently couldn't fit everything in the original one. Well, calibration. Well, that all sounds like fun, right? Well, it turns out it actually is quite a lot of fun. The Infernal Noise Machine by Flight of Harmony is a complex noise module, of course, and you have to want a noise module to have fun with a noise module. But what makes this stand out, in my opinion, is of course the dual joystick control here, and all of those features that are kind of intersecting and affecting each other. And I think this is also beautifully illustrated with the front panel graphics. You know, you have all those marked sections, but you know, the lines are squiggly and they intersect, and this is basically what this machine is about. You have two joysticks to navigate the sound or noise domains, how they are called here, and you can really just, you know, close your eyes and just feel your way through the Inferno, basically. But then when you open your eyes and look a little bit closer, you actually see quite a bunch of standard synthesizer features. You have two voltage controlled filters. They're bandpass filter-ish. Again, the manual tells you to append "ish" to everything because it is special circuitry, of course. So with the filters, you have a filter cutoff frequency, you have gain, so you can overdrive the filters, you have CV control for the cutoff frequency, and then you have two knobs down here to select what goes into the filters. And you have a bunch of waveforms, square wave, rising and falling ramps, you have triangle and sine wave, and you have the noise core as an input. And the noise core is the Infernal Noise Machine's center section here, where you have the two joysticks that navigate through those 8 domains that you can switch through with this domain knob. And this is basically just chaotic signals. It's not really noise, like white noise, like you might have been used to. It's really just chaotic stuff, and it's yeah, and I don't know what it does, but that's the beautiful thing here. It's like in the middle here you've got this living organism, and that is then sent through the filters if you want, and from then to the VCAs, but you can also, you know, bypass the filters and just go out with the VCAs directly. And then you also have the VCO, which can also be switched to LFO mode so that it's a lot slower, and this can then of course affect parameters in here. On top of that, you have a lot of patch sockets all around the front panel here, so everything basically is CV controllable, and those two joysticks actually also send X and Y CV out, so you can also use them to control other Eurorack modules or analog gear. You also then have a master volume knob, you have a tone control, which just blends between the normal signal and a low-pass filtered signal. And this makes this module really also a standalone instrument. And as you can see, I've got this in a form as pod case, together with the Sound of Shadows module here, which is the Flight of Harmony delay module. And this is really just a self-contained noise setup that you can, you know, spend hours and days with just exploring fun sounds. And in that case, of course, you should have a recorder running at all times, because there are lots of cool sounds that you can stumble upon while navigating the domains. And at some point you develop a feeling, you know, what happens when you turn this knob and, you know, put the joysticks in a certain direction. And while there's always a little bit of wiggle room for this machine to interpret your user input, you can actually get more or less deterministic results if you've spent some time with it. So let's have a closer look at this module now and listen to how it sounds and see where we can get with it. Okay, so what we'll be listening to is the all output in the bottom right here. This is a mix of the two VCA outputs, but as you can see already here, for each VCA, VCA1 and VCA2, those are those two rows up here, you have an input and output socket, input and output, and a CV socket as well, so you can actually use those two VCAs as separate VCA modules too. And that's the same again with the filters, what I said earlier. You have two voltage controlled filters, they have an input and an output, and a frequency CV, both of them. So you can actually decouple them basically from the Infernal Noise Machine and use them for other modular synth purposes. Okay, so let's look at the normal things first. As I said, we have two VCO selection knobs down here, which select which waveform we are sending into both of the filters. And then those filters go out into VCA1 and VCA2. VCF1 goes to VCA1 and VCF2 goes to VCA2. And we can switch if we want the filtered signal or the input signal of the filter. So we can bypass the filters as well if we take the filters out of the signal chain. For now they're in the signal chain, so right now we've got the VCOs set to a square wave, and let's turn up the volume of VCA1. We can already hear the square wave coming through a little bit, and then we can increase the gain here at VCF1 to make it louder. And past the middle here, you can hear clipping and distortion happening. So that's when we're overdriving the filter. And right now the filter frequency is turned low, and like I said, it's a band pass filter. It's not a low pass or high pass filter, it's some kind of band emphasis filter. Yeah, and you can see there's already some fun stuff happening here. So by overdriving the filter and then wiggling the filter cutoff frequency knob, you can already have some interesting effects. And then when you apply CV modulation to it, of course, then you can sweep through those ranges and have even more fun. Down here in the small VCO section, we can tune the VCO, so we can go really low and even ultrasonic very high. And again, you have to always wiggle with the filter cutoff frequency knob to find those sweet spots. You can also switch the VCO to LFO mode. And now you hear it clicking. So that's very low, and you can even turn it down. I don't know how long this cycle is now. It's probably in the manual, but it's really long. And then you can also get into audio rate territory as well. So there's a nice crossover there, and you're not just limited to low frequencies or high frequencies. So this also kind of becomes a performance, control, like where you can switch between certain effects. and that's kind of nice. Okay, let's switch back to VCO 1 volt per octave mode, although the manual also states that it won't track 1 volt per octave perfectly, so don't expect like tons of octaves of good tracking. But again, Infernal Noise Machine, everything is ish. Let's switch to the rising sawtooth wave. Yeah. Then we have a falling sawtooth wave and a triangle wave. And again, once we're clipping the signal, of course, we're getting out of that smooth triangle wave territory. You know, below the half of the knob range here, it's pretty standard, pretty smooth. But it's, yeah, it's quickly turning into distorted stuff. Because, you know, the filter always adds its character to it. We also have a sine wave. And that's also clipping nicely. And yeah, we have 2 of those, so we can turn up the VCA2 now, which receives the VCF2 signal. And turn up the gain. And now those 2 VCOs are tuned by the same knob, so the tuning is always synchronized. Okay, that's all very straightforward, and I think it helps, you know, to ease yourself into the Infernal Noise Machine, to just, you know, try out the simple stuff first, the things that we are used to as modular synthesists already, and then we can turn those VCO knobs to 11, or actually to, well, number 8, and have a look at the noise output. And the noise output is what the Infernal Noise Machine's center section is outputting. And this is this chaos noise that I talked about earlier. So let's do that right now. Let's switch to noise and turn up the VCA level 1. We can hear it clicking now. I'll leave the gain turned up and I'll put the center frequency to the middle there. And this is because we're in the lowest domain. And the lowest domain with 1 circle is basically an LFO domain. So we have just random crackles. So very slow spiking signals. And you can use the cores, joystick on the y-axis, it's the frequency, to make this slower or faster, at least a little bit. And with the fine-tune joystick, it's the same way, but it's barely audible. It's a little bit faster, a little bit slower. Yeah. So when we switch to domain number 2, it will get faster. And then domain number 3, even faster. Now we're getting into a nice drone territory already. And this is again just this one VCF chain through the VCA. We can of course use the filter to emphasize a certain frequency and turn down the gain, although the Infernal Noise Machine noise core will always be chaotic and distorted, of course. Okay, let's switch 1 domain higher. And now we're starting to get into really high, even almost ultrasonic territory, or at least for us older folks who can't hear into those high hertz ranges anymore. Now, can you hear that still? Maybe YouTube will lose it through the compression. There's like, you know, radio sounds. Yeah. See if I can maybe make that a little bit louder. So this is fun as, you know, sound effects, you know, just some, you know, weird alien sound effect. And you can, that's what I said earlier, you can, you know, use the joysticks to navigate those domains, really. And on the y-axis it's the frequency, and on the x-axis it's the range of the joysticks. So here when we're on the left side we have a high range, so frequency up is higher in frequency and frequency low is low in frequency. And when we go to the right side here, we have a reduced range of the frequency, so we can use it to fine-tune things a little bit better. And it's the same on the right side as well. So when we are here in some kind of, you know, louder territory, let's find it again, like here. We can now use the fine joystick to really finely navigate that tiny sweet spot that we've dialed in. And there's some interesting stuff happening, because as you can hear now, when we go lower with the frequency, it's starting to go up again down here. So in this higher domains, like, there's a lot more interaction between the various chaos VCOs that are happening, that are playing inside of the Infernal Noise Machine. And that's some interesting stuff to explore. And of course, right now we're just hearing the raw sound of the all output without any, you know, patching, any modulation, and also without any effects. And this is why I got the Sound of Shadows module in this rack too, because as a delay it's really nice to, you know, create some room and to smooth the chaos a little bit. So definitely also think about putting this thing through effects. Okay, let's switch one domain higher. Yeah, and here down there we're getting, you know, a little noisy actually. And then when we've dialed that in with the coarse joystick, we can again use the fine joystick to, you know, see if we can dial in some other sweet spots here. And if those controls are still too coarse, both of them, you actually have a frequency width knob down here and a range width knob. So with the range, which is the x-axis, I often find that by just, you know, going up and down, I'm changing the range. So I can just turn down the range actually, and then this joystick here, you know, won't do anything when I put it left and right. And I'm really just changing the frequency, and it's a lot easier for me to find those sweet spots. And depending on which domain you are, you want to, you know, try out different range settings here, because at the top domains, this is also written in the manual, you know, you have a very wide spectrum and you need very fine joystick movements. Let's find that sweet spot again. Here. You can also dial down the frequency range. And see, now we have already a better control. Let me dial that down even further. We might have to, you know, find it here with the left one again. And that's, you know, maybe not that, you know, live performance or musically interesting, but it's actually very fun to just, you know, explore, I think. Yeah, see, now we have a lot more travel here for this than we had earlier when we had the frequency width turned up. And yeah, and so like this you can just explore the upper domains. But then of course you have 7 other domains which are more drony and more in the audible spectrum, with which you can do like more traditional drone and noise stuff. Okay. Now we also have a tone control here, and that's what I said earlier. That's simply a low-pass filter that is blended in when it's on the right, and just a regular signal on the left. And the low-pass filter signal might have phase differences, so when you put it in the middle here somewhere, there are sometimes also weird things happening. Now what we can also do without actually patching is use the chaos of the Infernal Noise Machine's noise core to modulate the VCO. So let's switch to square wave, and now let's dial up the tuning a little bit. And now when we increase the mod depth parameter here. We have frequency modulation. And of course we're at a high domain, so let's just turn that lower. And turn up the width. And what you can also hear is that the tone knob actually affects the frequency modulation, because that affects the internal noise core, which is modulating the frequency now. Now again, those are all static sounds really with a little bit of joystick interaction, knob tweaking, but of course as a sound source in a modular system or in a studio context, you want to modulate these things, sequence these things, and throw them into some kind of effect chains. So without going too much into the whole patching thing, I'll just patch something up here and you can listen to it and see if you like it. Okay, so this is a fun little thing. I'm using the individual waveform outputs of the VCO set to LFO mode to modulate the filter cutoff frequencies, the joysticks, and also the VCA volumes. And then I've patched everything to the sound of shadows delay now, because as I said, you want to send this thing through effects, and I can turn up this now. And the sound of shadows is a PT delay, and when you turn the rate down, it gets really crunchy digitally. So you can, get even some crackly sounds when I turn this down even lower. And of course the rate can also be modulated, and that's a really fun and versatile crunchy delay module. Okay, this is in a higher domain now, of course, and again I'm modulating all the parameters with the LFO waveforms, which are slower now. And we get some noisy, scratchy sounds here, some high frequency content, and again if we use the sound of shadows delay here, we can get really nice, spacious noise sounds. Okay, here I'm in the lowest domain now, so we get those random pulses, and I've set up a triangle and a sine wave VCO through the filters, and now those pulses from the noise core, they are triggering this VCA, and they are also affecting the VCO pitch a little bit. So we get, a little bit of a frequency shift in those deep bassy sounds. And this is a nice rhythmic patch, I think, which again you can send through the sound of shadows or some other effect. by changing the frequency, of course, of the noise shots that you're getting on the lowest domain, you can change the rhythm. And of course I also have some modulation going on here for the joysticks, so the rhythm slowly changes by itself as well. Again, I think really nice droney bottom end here. Okay, this is a noisier patch where you also have, you know, first and the second half. Now it's going down, and on the barrel it's getting noisier. And so yeah, this is also just a very simple, you know, frequency modulation patch. And again, we can use the joysticks to change the noise parameters. And with the sound of shadows again. What I also find nice about the sound of shadows is that when you turn it low but not into glitchy territory, you get this nice hissing white noise that often kind of smoothes out the harsher noise from the Infernal Noise Machine. Okay, let's unpatch this now, and I'm gonna get a sequencer module and externally sequence the VCO for you. Okay, so I've patched up a simple synth voice without any weird noisiness actually. So let's turn up the volume. Add some delay, of course. Now this is just the Liveforms microsequence B module sequencing the internal oscillator via the 1 watt per octave input. It is set to a blues scale right now, quantized the sequencer here, and we have the gate signal opening and closing that first VCA and another CV signal smoothly opening and closing that second VCA. And I've patched up the joysticks, not to create any chaos, but simply to control the filter cutoff of VCF1 and VCF2. And again, since those two are bandpass filters, you don't have this LPF or high PF characteristic, and you are just emphasizing certain bands, and when overdriving them again, it will definitely change the character. noodle around with that for hours. So yeah, now you've seen that you can also externally sequence the VCO frequency and of course everything else for which you have patch sockets here. And like I also mentioned, you can use all of those modules, VCF1, 2, VCA, VCO, as just standalone modules, as well as the joysticks like I just showed you right now. They can just control, you know, anything you want by outputting their X and Y CV ranges separately. Okay, I hope this video gave you a nice overview of the Infernal Noise Machine by Flight of Harmony. Let me know in the comments how you liked it and how you like your Infernal Noise Machine if you own one yourself. Let me know your patching tips and tricks and also what kinds of videos you'd like me to make with this module in the future. So stay tuned for more. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon.